All right, what is going on, everybody? We are back with another episode here. We have got someone that I recently heard speak at the Knockstar event, and this guy just dropped absolute bombs. He brought the fire, brought the heat. So I knew I had to get him on the podcast right away. So today we have the one, the only Will Durlene coming on the show. Thanks for joining us today, Will.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the invite. I've seen the show, seen some clips, and definitely had some legends on here. So excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So, yeah, you've been in solar, I know, since 2019, and we'll let you tell your story a little bit here. But yeah, as I mentioned just a second ago, heard you at Knockstar in Florida recently, and you won, I think you won the best speaker award there too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
brought it
correct.
home.
Yep,
Yeah,
I brought it home and got it sitting on my bear brick out there. I was super proud.
yeah,
There was amazing speakers there, so it was an
yeah.
honor even to be considered in that group for sure.
Yeah, let's go. Well, congrats on that. And yeah, let me tell you, this guy, I was taking notes the entire time. And already I'm seeing, a couple things I've implemented in my close that we'll get into. That's I thought was genius. That was your topic. Is I think the art of closing deals, right? Focused on
Yep.
mainly closing. Okay. So yeah, I'm excited to get in your story and jam on that a little bit more. But yeah, do you want to give us your background in solar, Will, and how long you've been doing it? You're the president of Omni Power Group out there in Arizona, um, and been in it since 2019. But yeah, we'll let you give kind of the full introduction for our listeners here and give us the background. So go for it.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So again, as Taylor said, I'm Will Durlene, president of Omni Power, and kind of give you guys a background on my story. Basically, how I even landed in Arizona and had the opportunity to get into sales was before I moved out here. I lived in Orange County, California, and I was kind of a partier kid. Didn't really, have much of a drive. Was kind of just drinking every weekend, doing some drugs, and not really I didn't really have a focus for success. I didn't have any passions. I, thought maybe I would get into like growing weed or something like that and make a bunch of money off that. But I didn't have anything that was a tangible business idea or any drive to go out and make the world a better place. And for like 3-4 years, I was around a pretty toxic group of not just friends, but just relationships and everyone I was spending my time with, where literally I would just wake up, like, ditch high school and go and just do some degenerate stuff with a bunch of kids who had no plans to do anything in life. And I was doing that for a long time, and eventually actually I got into selling some drugs, and I was doing that because I was just trying to make some money and you know
Yeah.
provide for this lifestyle that I thought was good and fun. And it was just going downhill, and I actually started getting like paranoia of like going to jail, and like I thought I was being watched and all this stuff. So I kind of had this aha moment where I just realized I had to drop everything. I had to get away from the toxic people I was spending every day with, all the time with. I had to get out of the toxic relationships I was in. And I knew that if I just dropped everything and moved somewhere where I didn't know anyone, I'd maybe find my calling. I'd maybe find my drive. And that's exactly what I did. My mom, she lived in Sedona, Arizona, and I was living with my dad in
Mm.
California. And I talked with her. I was like, Mom, I need to change my life. I need to find what I want to do. And I decided to just drop everything, drop all my friends, my family, my relationships, everything I had going on. And I moved to Sedona, and I moved in with her, and I didn't have any plans, right? I decided to go work at an acai bowl shop, which my
Mm.
mom was dating the guy who started it. So it was just an easy in, and
Nice.
figured it'd be a cool
Nice.
job, right?
Yeah.
So went
That's awesome.
in, worked at the acai bowl shop, did that for a couple years. Actually, on the last day of work at the acai bowl shop, a guy came in, recruited me to join the timeshare industry, got into
Nice.
that. I actually broke some records my first week, and then went on to break tons of records that first year. Made a lot of money. I cleared like $100,000 in 6 months, and
Mm.
they actually, my name's Will Durlene, so they called me WD-40 because I was the first one to clear 40 in a month. So a little funny, little
Wow.
funny
That's
story there.
awesome.
It was WD-40 is going
That's
to go
sweet.
grease them up. That was the line when I would go close someone.
Love it.
But
That's awesome.
yeah, man,
That's
it
cool,
was cool.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
learned a
well, so
lot.
many takeaways. Yeah, yeah. No, and I love what you're talking about, just getting in a new environment because I think so many people, in solar included, that's part of the reason they're not having the success they want. Like I'm out here in San Diego and we recruit a lot of local guys. And I think a reason why some of them fell is because they're still hanging out with their old friends. They're in their old, maybe high school group, hanging out with losers, and they come and expect to like have success in solar, but at the same time, they're still hanging out with these chumps over here. So a lot to be said. And for those listening, maybe you're not having success. I think that's something you need to look at. Who are the people you're surrounding yourself with? Are they all broke? Are they all doing drugs and all that? Because if that's the lifestyle they're in, then you're probably not going to get ahead if you're hanging out with them. And it's like, they say you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So, a big thing you just mentioned right there. But love that. Love that.
No, yeah, you're spot on with it. I've noticed over the last 5 years, right? 5 years ago, even further than that, right? Like 8 years ago, I was hanging around absolute toxic people, and that's who I was. I was a toxic person, right? And then you go to
Yeah.
kind of when I got into timeshare, moved out to Arizona, I surrounded myself with higher performing individuals than I had been, but these were individuals making like 1 to 200,000, and they were still drinking, doing some things that maybe weren't so great for self growth, and I
Yeah.
improved. I started becoming more like them. I was making my way up. And then over the last, 5 years, I've just seen myself surround myself with all these incredible individuals in this industry. And now I've just been leveling up on a level that I never even visualized 8 to 10 years ago. And it's
Yeah.
it's a direct result with who I've surrounded myself with. The people I work
Yeah.
with, people that are my mentors, the people I train with, all these people that are doing the things I wanted to do, that are living the lifestyles I wanted to live. I just surrounded myself with them, and that's how I got to be able to live that lifestyle. So that what you just said
Yeah.
is so spot on. That's I
Yeah.
attribute everything, all my growth over the last 8 to 10 years, to my environment I placed myself in.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Love it, love it. Yeah, and so you got into solar 2019, and you mentioned like we all know 2020 hits COVID, so it's kind of a tough time to come into solar. So, what was it like transitioning from timeshare to solar? How did that go? And yeah, how did you first get into solar?
Yeah, great question. So for me, coming from timeshare to solar, even though it was a rough time in the solar industry because of COVID and door to door and all that, it was still such an amazing transition for me because timeshare is not an easy sale. It's not a great product. It's not something people need. It's not something people are already paying for.
Yeah,
So going from a product like that to learning about solar, a product people are already paying for, a product that people genuinely need, a product that genuinely helps people, that was such an amazing transition, and I just hit the ground running. I went out every single day. I knocked every single day. I built recruited everyone from timeshare that I knew had skill to build my business and give them a better opportunity. And we had a great year that first year. It was a struggle for a lot of other people in other industries because they weren't used to it, but I think it was almost a blessing that I started solar in one of the hardest times, because we've only improved and excelled every single year since then.
yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, OmniPower. So 2019, when you first jumped in, did you right off the bat start your dealer OmniPower, or did you go work for a company, or what was that like?
Awesome question. Yeah. So I actually joined a guy who was working at another company, which was called Suncor Power. And that
Okay.
was a really small company. They had like, 6 to 8 reps. And when I went in there, I brought all my timeshare boys who were closers, right? And we triple, quadruple, 5x that company. And what
Oh,
had happened was the owner of that company actually gave me ownership of that business, which was awesome because started making some more money, started having some say in the business. But unfortunately, we had a falling out, me, him, and our other partner. And me and the
yeah,
other partner just decided, because of different, agreeances and morals and ethics, we wanted to go start Omni Power. And luckily,
gotcha.
most of our guys ended up following us. They liked our leadership and kind of what we had going on. And after leaving that company, which was about 20-25 reps, we started Omni Power in 2022, and now we're sitting at 50 reps with Omni Power. So
Yeah.
it was a
Wow.
struggle when it went down, leaving that company, because I lost a lot of money, and it was just stressful. But it was the best thing that ever happened, because now we're able to do things the way that we want and have the company ran the way we want. So super proud of what we've been able to build.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, and it's awesome that you have that level of influence that's your whole team just follows you. I think there's something to be said about that, and that's the best guys that I've had on the podcast, leaders I've seen in the industry. Like, it doesn't really matter the company. I actually went through experience 2019, kind of same time as you, where it had some issues with our installation company, and pay issues, all that, and the company kind of went on under. But most of the reps went with this guy named Ricardo Ritchie. You probably heard of him,
Oh
working
yeah.
with him at the time, and basically the entire company at the time just followed him to his next dealer where he went. And I'm like, man, this guy has got some amazing influence that he literally just brought. Like, it doesn't really matter where he's going; they're just all going to follow him. So it's really cool, and I think that's what everyone dreams of, is getting to that level of influence and just having people look up to you like that. So yeah, what's your advice? Like, how do you get to that level of influence, and what did you? I don't know how the conversation goes with your guys. I'm sure it's based. They see you're like producing at a really high level, but yeah, what's some advice to like just have that level of influence to where guys just want to follow you like that?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is leadership is not a title, it's not a job. People choose their leaders, right? Like that could be taken away from me any day. I know that. My partner, that could be taken away from him any day. We could lose all our guys tomorrow if we didn't serve them, come for them, come through for them, take care of them, and lead them the way that I would want to be led, right? And I know that anyone's replaceable. I know that we all, left this guy because he wasn't doing things we agreed with, and they all followed me. And I know that at any time, if someone's not living at their highest integrity level, if someone's not leading from the front, everyone can leave them. So you have to choose to be a leader every single day. It's not a
Yeah,
it's not a 5 day a week job. It's not a 6 day a week job. It's not a 360 day a year job. It's an every single day, every single hour job to be a
yeah,
leader, and you have to make that choice every single day. And that's something I have personally grown a ton in over the last few years, just by losing reps, growing from different mistakes. And I've personally been able to get to that point where I know every single day I have to wake up, choose to be the best possible leader that's out there, or people will go find another one. And that's an
yeah.
everyday type thing. It always has been for me for the last couple of years since we started Omni Power.
Yeah, yeah, so true. Yeah, and people wonder why they lose reps. Like, you're always gonna lose reps. It's not like, I know you've lost plenty of reps, I'm sure, over time, but
Of course.
if you choose to lead at all times, and yeah, I love what you said. Like, make it 365 days a year. It's not a 360-day thing. Like, some people, they're not willing to make that sacrifice. So for those who are wanting to be at that level of leadership, it's like you got to look inside yourself. Are you willing to be that person 365 days a year, make the sacrifice, miss out on vacations, trips, and all that? Because a lot of people talk and say they want to like have that level of leadership, want to close this many deals, want to do whatever goal they set out for themselves, but then they realize like the sacrifice it's going to take. And that's, I think a lot of people don't realize that, hey, if you actually want that, then here's what you need to do. So you got to match those things up if you actually want to achieve those goals. So
That's
yeah,
exactly it.
yeah, that's huge. That's huge. But yeah, I want to hear, Will, what was your initial experience like in solar? Were you one of the guys that just comes out having instant success? I know you were already like closing at a really high level, but did you go through any struggles maybe, or anything that was different getting into solar versus selling the timeshares?
Yeah, great question. I actually did deal with struggles. I didn't get paid for my first 2 months in solar, which doesn't sound like that long. I know people go longer than that, but for me, coming from timeshare, making a lot of money every week, that was a big change, right? This slow money, and I was being trained by people at the time who were just closing on site survey and doing different things that weren't going to get the results that I needed to get the income that I wanted. So I had a for the first 2 months I didn't get paid, and then after that I started getting some installs, but my install rate was like 50%. I'd close deals, but only 50% of them would go to install, and I just
Yeah.
knew that there had to be better way to get better results. So I
Yeah.
started listening to Taylor McCarthy, right, Mike O'Donnell. I really started studying these word tracks, and for closing, Mike O'Donnell especially, like I just memorized what this guy was saying because I saw his results of 2 megawatts installed, and I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
And I literally just studied. And after going away from the guys that I was learning from in my own company and learning from these other legends, I was able to become the top rep in the company, teach everyone
Nice.
else what I was doing, and kind of show them how to get more deals, but more importantly, more installs, right? Because that's
Mm.
that's how we get paid, is installs, not signed site survey deals. That's a big thing
Yeah.
for me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I like that because yeah, list success leaves clues. So that's for anyone trying to learn to close. I think that's probably the best way to learn is like listen to other high level people doing it and copy it. And I know when we heard you at Knockstar, that was a big thing. I think you took a lot of stuff from Michael O'Donnell's book, which is really good. No matter what, I think is his book.
Yep.
And yeah, just listen to other people. I remember when I first started closing, that's how I learned too. Is I just said, okay, hey, who's the top guy at my company right now? Got him to record his presentation, and I listened to it just over and over and over at the gym, on the way to appointments, on the way to turf, and yeah, it's just like you get in there and you copy everything that these guys are saying. So that's probably the best way to learn. And then over time, I know you add your little sprinkles into it. You make adjustments. You get your own style, and yeah,
Exactly.
it's really worked for you. But what are for people listening? What are some of your records? Well, I know you've like closed tons and tons of deals. What's been like your best year installed? Yeah, what are some records just for so our listeners can hear the level you're at
Yeah.
right now?
So this year was my best year. I sat in about 120 houses and I closed 106 of those,
Oh my
and
god!
78 of those are going through to install. So
Wow.
pretty good percentages there. I don't sit in a ton of houses, as you can see. I know that if I sat in more, I'd be closing a lot more. But the reason for that is because I'm running the company, so I'm really trying to focus on getting my closers into as many houses as possible, and that's been my focus. So that was this last year. I'm pretty proud of those numbers just because good install rate, very high close rate, combined with those two percentages. And yeah, I was super proud of those numbers. And then my dealership, we installed 4 megawatts this year as a
Nice.
dealership, and that was our best year. It was actually almost double what we did the previous year.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
not too many people closing at that rate, so that's really impressive. But yeah, so would you say that's the biggest thing? We're gonna get into closing here in a second, but would you say that's the biggest thing that helped you is just listening to like Mike O'Donnell, some of these guys, listening to their close, or is there anything else you did starting out that helped you learn the close better?
literally just practice in the dark, right? Listening to Mike O'Donnell, listening to Taylor McCarthy, take what I like from those two guys and other people in the industry, create my own process, and then just running through it in my head all day long, right? I'm the kind of person where I'm very ADD, right? And it's kind of a loose thrown around term, but I become obsessed with things that I'm interested in, right? Whether
Yeah,
it's, a sporting event or solar, whatever it is, I become obsessed with. So I can't even control it, right? When I hear a Mike O'Donnell line for the next 3 days, I'm in the shower, I'm in the car, all that's happening is that line playing over in my head like crazy, right? And
yeah,
I do it so much till I can say it 8 different ways. And that's just how
yeah,
my personal brain works. For other people, from some of my reps, I know their brain doesn't work like that. So I tell them you need to write these things out over and over and over, right? I've actually studied how other types of people learn so I could teach my reps who learn that way how they can master these things, because not everyone's going to learn like me. Not everyone's going to have a photographic memory when it comes to word tracks, right? That's not realistic. So
yeah,
I've taken a lot of time to figure out how my reps can best learn this, and it's just repetition, right? Them saying it, them writing it, them role playing it. You got to make sure you're hitting all the variables when it comes to training. And it at the end of the day, when someone's put the work in the dark, right? Like I've gone up on stage at Andy Elliott events and I've hit him with straight objections, and I'm one of the only people who he doesn't roast because I say the right thing. And that's literally only because I put the work in the dark. And I'm sure if you went up there, same thing, you would know what to say because you put the work in the dark. And it's like everyone wants the secret magic recipe for how can I memorize this? How can I become the best closer? It's just consistent ups, right? It's like Michael Jordan. Why does he make every basket? Because he shot it 10,000 plus times. It's just the more reps you get, the more times you say it in your head, it's going to stick and you're going to be so ready in house. It's just going to be like riding a bike, second nature.
yeah. Wow, that's some sauce right there. That's so good. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's the level it takes. But yeah, I really like what you're saying is like I get it. Not every person is gonna be like Will. We're not all gonna obsess over it to that level, probably. So yeah, I think it is important to be able to teach other guys, especially for managers, leaders, because there's a lot of high level guys that's I see that aren't necessarily the best managers, aren't necessarily the best at teaching closing. Like they can close at a really high level, but yeah, that's really cool, and I think that's true understanding if you can break it down and simplify it so that other people can understand and also implement it. But yeah, I mean that's awesome. Just That's a different level of obsession right there. And no, no wonder your closing ratio is so high.
Yeah,
That's
man, it's funny. I talk to my girl and my friends about it. I'm like, the second I hear a word track and I know it's good, like I just can't stop playing it in my head. It's the funniest thing. But again, it's just because
yeah,
I genuinely have a love for it. The craft. I really do.
yeah. No, that's good. And it's funny. So I interviewed Taylor McCarthy. I think it's been like 2 years now, but he actually has the most downloads for our podcast. And the reason is because he just spit out so many different one-liners and different lines he uses. So people just listen to it on repeat over and over and over and over. So he's getting all these downloads.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but yeah,
Makes
I
sense.
mean,
Got
I
some
know
nuggets.
that's
All my process comes from him and Mike. I just put the two together. What I like from his, what I like from Mike's, combined them, and then I sprinkled the Will Durlene sauce on, and I got my own little recipe.
nice. Okay, all right. So Will Durlene is the offspring of McCarthy and O'Donnell.
There you
Yep,
go.
they had a baby. There we go. So cool. Well, yeah. So let's get into the closing here before we get short on time here, Will. So I want to get into your closing process and just we probably won't go quite as in depth as you went at Snockstar. I know you went over a ton of details there, but yeah, just to like an overview, what's your general closing process? How do you structure it? And then yeah, I'd love to hear like some one-liners you use and I know you have a really cool way for like isolating objections and getting them over the hump at the end, which I'm implementing. But yeah, what's the general structure and just kind of like your general ideas on closing? Start things
Yeah.
off.
Let's get into it. I'll walk you guys kind of through the A through Z process quickly, and then I'll go for some of the one liners and the actual word tracks that'll put money in people's pockets. So
Let's go.
A through
Sweet.
Z process, it all starts right before you even get to the house preparation. You need to make sure you got your proposals dialed in. You need to make sure you got your confidence. I yell affirmations at myself the whole drive to the house, whether it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes. And that
Nice.
doesn't just, it's not just the affirmations, it's the energy building. I love to build that energy before I get to a house because the person with the most energy makes the most money, right? That's just a fact. So get that energy going, be prepared, have your proposals, have your adders priced in, have your I have blue folders that have all the specs, the warranties, the reviews, everything they're going to want to email to them. I have that all ready to go so I can leave it with every close right there. But preparation's key. Next thing you got to get to the house, it's going to be the make a friend / rapport, right? And it's make a friend to me. Rapport is kind of a loosely thrown term that people I feel like almost abuse to make a fake connection. It's make a friend. It's become a genuine friend to these people, have a genuine connection, genuinely care about them. And that starts at the door by looking them in the eye, having your chest out, confident smile, asking to take the shoes off. I greet the kids, the mom, the dad, everyone in the house I'm greeting. I'm letting them know who I am, why I'm there, giving them all my energy, my smile. And then I like to set up at a place where I have control, not directly side by side, right? So that I can really control that interaction. After I sit down, I do my little chop up discovery. I talk about the things that I'm interested in, right? And I try to see if they're also interested. I ask them questions about their past that are going to one connect us and hopefully find some commonalities. But number two, it's going to give me some ammo for the close. It's going to tell me things like what they do for work, where they moved from, how long they've been in their home. Like I'm going to get all this info while becoming their friend, and I'm going to be genuinely interested to the point where I can repeat every answer they're giving to me because I'm laser focused, right? I'm not a strobe light. I'm laser focused on everything they're saying. So that's a big thing. You got to become a friend. I always tell my reps and everyone I'm training, if you don't become a friend, if you don't earn the trust of these people, my process won't work for you because you're going to do a couple things that are pretty savage. You're going to establish dominance, and the only way you can do that is if you've gained these people's trust. Nobody's going to allow you to establish dominance with them if you haven't earned their trust. So that's a huge thing, is earn the trust.
Nice. That's good.
After you've made the friend, you go right into the process, and that starts with the intro. The intro, I like to tell my story, and again, for time's sakes, I'm not going to go into every little bit. But basically, when I tell my story, I just explain who I am, how long I've been in the industry, why I work with the installer I work with, why they're the best, why I've selected that installer for them, and I explain briefly the dealer installer relationship, just so there's no confusion about dealing with Omni Power, about dealing with our installer. Everything's linked up. After I do that and explain that, tell my story, I do a short little Q&A. So I'll write down things that interest them about solar, as well as things that they maybe have some concerns about solar. And I won't address any of them. I won't just address that objection or concern there. I'll just write it down to make sure I really tee in on that one later, which I'm going to cover no matter what, but I make
Yeah.
sure I really cover whatever was on that little hot
Yeah.
list of concerns,
Yeah.
right?
That's good.
Yeah. So
It's
go right
good.
into the yeah. What are you say?
I was just gonna say, yeah. So there is the reasoning behind that just to maintain control. Like you don't want them asking the questions. You want to be writing it down, and like you're the one asking the questions, right? Is that your
Yeah,
reasoning behind that?
I don't want them to cut my process off with questions that they just thought of. So I give them
Okay.
time to think, sit on that and get them all out. And now it's written down. They know I'm going to address it. It's not lingering on their mind like, "Oh, is he going to address this? Oh, is he going to address that?" I have
Yeah.
it. They know I'm going to address it cuz it's on my list right there. And now I'm controlling, right? I'm deciding when that's going to be addressed and I'm making sure that I'm covering all their concerns. And
Yeah.
you saw it during my process, and I'll go more into it here. But throughout the whole process, I'm asking on top of that, do you have any questions? Does this make sense? So you want to do that initial Q&A to really dig in and make them think. But you're also going to catch any more throughout the process that come out. And if they ask a random question about something that's not attributed to what you're talking about, just write it down, let them know you'll get to it in a minute, and make sure that you really cover that on the section. So again, I'm
Okay.
constantly making sure that I'm getting anything that's on their mind out. I'm keeping them focused on what I'm saying and not letting their mind drift to other ideas or questions.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I love that. So yeah, that's your fact finding, and then how are you teeing it up? I think you talked a little bit about this in your presentation, but yeah, what's so get their questions down and how you like set an expectation that hey, we're doing this today. Like, do you bring that up right after? Maybe you're
That's right
about to go into that.
after. That would be right after this intro. The end of the intro is just explaining how solar works, right? Everybody has a different utility company. Make sure you know how your utility company works with solar and then properly explain it to the customer. Where I work, the buyback is prevalent. Without the buyback, they're going to need batteries. They're going to be spending $20,000, $30,000 more on solar than what they would spend if they just went solar with this current program, right? Without the batteries being needed. So what I
Right.
do is I explain the solar program. I explain how prevalent the buyback is and how without it, they'd be spending 20, 30, $40,000 on batteries. And what I'm doing there is I'm killing the battery idea as well, right? Because we don't need batteries where I'm living. And, sometimes you have a customer who's like, what about batteries? So what I'm doing there is I'm not only setting myself up for the next step, but I'm killing any idea that they want batteries because someone hears 20, 30, 40,000. They're like, nah, never mind, no way. And now you're
Yeah.
letting them know that you don't even need it. So I make sure that's very clear. I explain the buyback. I explain how we don't need batteries right now because of that. And then I let them know, right? Hey, by the way, Mr. Customer, you know how I explained that buyback is so important right now because it makes it so we don't need batteries, right? And I'm like, yeah, totally. And I'll let them know, okay, so one thing I want you to know is right now we have that buyback in Arizona, but one state over in California, they no longer offer a buyback with most of the utilities there. And the reason for that is because they just changed to NEM3. And with this new program, they're not buying back any power because they've actually reached the cap for how many people can sell their power back to the grid. So, because of that, now everyone who wants to go solar with those utilities has to spend 20, 30, $40,000 on batteries just to get the same zero bill that the people got before they lost the buyback. Does that make sense? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's crazy. They got rid of it in California. I'm like, exactly. Now, one thing here in our utility, we also have the 15% cap. And our research shows that we could reach that 15% any day. Now, I want to take a pause right there and explain that the reason you want to say any day is because you can use this in almost any market. You're not making a guarantee, you're not claiming a day, you're just saying we could reach it any day, right? Which is a true statement. So it works for different markets. A lot of people make like fake deadlines or I like to be honest and real. So I just say research shows we could reach the 15% any day, which again is a true statement. And then I let them know because of that, because we could reach the 15% any day, from now until the day that we reach the 15%, I sit with 5, 6 people every single day. They even got me doing this on Sundays. That's my job, right? To see 5 to 6 people every day until we reach that cap. So, because of that, until we reach the 15%, I'm not able to come back here. After the 15%, no worries. We can come back, look at batteries, no worries at all. But until that day, I'm in the 5 to 60s every day. I'm not able to come back here. So while I'm here, my job's simple. It's just to figure out if solar and this system is a yes or a no for you guys. And the way I do that, it's super simple. I just compare your current situation to what the solar system would look like on a monthly basis. And what I want from you guys while I'm doing that is to think of any reason, even one reason, you like your current option more. At the end, if there's not a single reason you like your current option more, great. We know the solar is a yes. We get this process started today. But if there's any reason you like your current situation more, hey, there's no harm in keeping you with the option you're used to. Does that sound fair?
Yeah,
And then,
let's do it.
yeah, you see it right there. And then you
Nice.
get the okay, and you just keep moving along. Now you got permission to close them. And if you do your job right, and if you follow the process right, they're not going to have a single reason they like the utility company more. I only had one guy ever give me a reason, and you know what it was?
He worked for him,
No,
or
he goes, inertia. I'm like, so you the act of just staying still. He's like, yes. I was like, wow, man, we got some really loyal customers. I'm glad you're so loyal customer to the utility.
that's awesome.
It's like inertia, right? So,
Yeah,
but 99% of the time, they're either going to say, yeah, totally, or they're going to say, no, I don't sign anything day of. And you get that sometimes, right? So I'll hit them with this again. I'll be like, hey, man, no, totally get that. I wouldn't ask you to sign your life away. We couldn't come install the panels today if we wanted to. But let me just clarify, right? Like, if I went through this whole process and there was no reason at all you wouldn't make the switch, would you at least get the process started today? And if they go, yeah, usually they're like, well, I mean, if there wasn't any reason, exactly, man, that's all I'm asking. Ball's in your court, sweet, and then you move on. But every now and then, rarely, you'll get the total bull owl who just ego's in the way, and he goes, no, I will not make a decision, even if I decide it's the best thing for me. And if they say that, I make sure my lead team gets their number and follows them up. I don't waste my time because my time is valuable. I could be going helping
yeah,
my reps, giving them training. I'm not going to sit somewhere for an hour and a half when they don't even agree to make a decision if it
yeah,
100% makes sense, right? So
yeah.
some people disagree with that. It's how I personally run it just because I really value my time.
Yeah, no, I think that's important, especially if you're trying to close at a high volume. Like any guy that's closing a massive volume of accounts, they don't have time to sit in deals like that. And yeah, it shows you got to have the solid pre-frame, figure out what's going on with it. But yeah, I like how you're adding urgency there too, because I think that's a mistake I made for a long time. Is I would just try to get these people, hey, I'll show you all the info, and then at the end you can say yes or no type thing. But I wasn't giving them enough reason as to why they should do that today, so I would get so many people just be like, like fight me on it, fight me on it. But that was a big aha moment for me when I hear guys like you, Taylor McCarthy, Mike O'Donnell, adding that urgency and giving them, hey, there's a legit reason why we're doing this. It's not to get you guys like make a same day decision. It's because we want you to save as much money as possible. We want it to be as good a system as possible, and then we'll just get the process started. Like any reasonable person is going to say yes if you do it right. So yeah, I
Right. And,
love
if
that.
you, and like I said, if you become a friend and you establish trust, like, dude, when I go into houses, I become a friend, I establish trust, and then I say this to them, they're like, oh, honey, no, we know you're busy. We wouldn't expect you to come back. Like, they like feel like, oh my gosh, no, we wouldn't expect that of you because now you've built that connection and you've put the gun in the utility's hands. So the pressure's coming from the utility. It's like we're a team together. I'm busy. I can't come back. So I'm going to put the ball in your court. Like, it's like a team effort now. You know, it's not like I'm putting the pressure on you. It's no, these guys are putting the pressure. Let's make this work for or against either way. Cool. If it's a yes, great. If it's a no, but like now the pressure's coming from them, not me. And I'm on a team with them and they're understanding of me and my schedule. And I'm understanding that now a decision needs to be made. And that's just the overall understanding. And it like 80% of the time, it's such a flow. The first few times I did this was a little choppy and I was like, is this going to work? And then it just worked. And now almost every time. It's just a flow. They just agree to make a decision. And then at the
Yeah.
end, you might get some objections. They might want to wait. But again, we'll get into how to cover that. But getting past that first hump, stating the intention and getting the commitment, that is the biggest thing anyone can implement in their process, like immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Helps so much. And yeah, I am in California. I don't know if you knew that, Will. So that all the trash you're talking on in California, that's about us over here.
So I get it.
But I would do the same thing. I would do the same thing. But yeah, even if you're in California, you can still build you're not gonna, talk about the batteries in the same way. But even for us out here, I mean, there's battery incentives. They do have like funding for batteries, and right now it's like we do mostly PPAs, leases, things like that, where the cost of the battery or a good portion of it is covered just in the funding. So that's our way of building urgency. It's like, hey, everyone's wanting to get a battery right now. They do have money from the state that covers a lot of these costs, but and I love your, I'm going to start using that, but that could, the funding they have for the batteries could be gone any day. So that's our goal, is just to try to get you the best numbers possible on it and get as much of the cost covered of this battery. So yeah, something like that. So you can find ways. Don't worry. Yeah.
That's exactly right. You're spot on. I tell everyone it's not like you have to take my exact words and my exact, like, no, you should take the ideas of what I'm saying, like I did with Mike, and then plug in your own deadlines, your own setups. Like if you plug in your own truths, it's gonna make what I just said even better. I promise you. Like, I know that Mike, his strategy, I took it and I made it my own, and I feel like it works better for me than if I just copied him directly. And that's
Yeah.
again because I thought of my own deadlines, my own utility, my own neighboring state, California. So just like
Yeah.
you just said, Taylor, that's so spot on. Just like you could easily use that battery incentive deadline. Just say, hey, like from now until this incentive goes away, my job, my company has me assigned to see 5 to 6 people every day until this incentive
Yeah.
goes away. So because
Yeah.
of that, until that day, and you just do the same thing just with that deadline. So you can use this anywhere. You just got to find a real deadline and run with it.
Yeah, definitely. Love it. Love it. So yeah, let's keep it rolling. So after you go through the fact finding, I know generally for most people it's kind of, building pain, getting into the solution and all that. But yeah, what's like your next steps before you start getting into numbers and the close and everything?
Yeah, you hit it spot on. Building pain. I go straight into inflation, right? Because that's where
Okay.
the pain is, right? And what I do, again, I bring up your state where you're at. I bring up you guys in Cali because it's a great reference point, right? I let them know, hey, so your guys' bill right now is $200, right? And I'll write it down on the paper for them. It's $200 a month. They'll be like, yeah, yeah, exactly. Or they'll argue with me, and then I'll have to prove to them what their actual average is by showing them averages. And you want to make sure you have an agreement on the average, right? And they know what their average is, and you know what their average is, because if there's a discrepancy there, it kind of sways a lot of the decision,
Sure.
right? Some people think their average is 100, and then when you actually show them their average, it's like $180. So I make sure that that's very clear, because a confused mind always says no, right? So
True.
again, make
Yeah.
sure that there's no confusion and you're on the same page with the average. So you confirm their average, and I let them know right now that bill isn't so crazy. If your bill was going to stay $200 for the rest of your life, I wouldn't even be here today, right? But we both know that's not going to happen. If you look at the last 60 years, about every 15 years, utility costs double. And you get them to agree, right? They'll be like, yeah, yeah. Or if they go, oh, they're like, well, no, think about it. Like anything, movie tickets, gas, real estate, give them some examples. And then they'll start to be like, oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. About every 15 years, things double. Exactly. Now, to be blunt with you, if your bill was going to double in 15 years, I'd still be here today, but this wouldn't be such a pressing matter as it is. But the
Yeah.
reality, Mr. Customer, is your bill is not going to double in 15 years. I wish it was, but it's not going to. Have you heard about the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act? And they'll either say yes or they'll say no. And be like, perfect. Yeah, you've heard of it. Or, oh, okay, great. I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Basically, if you look this up after I leave, which you should, I always tell them that, right? To get them thinking about maybe doing research on it, because it's a crazy bill if you actually read into it. And I let them know this bill, it's a 400 billion with a B, 400 billion with a B dollar bill to end coal, natural gas, and fossil fuels. Now, let me ask you, Mr. Customer, where do you think your utility gets all their power from? Almost everyone's going to know the answer. They're going to say coal, natural gas, fossil fuels. Exactly. Now, in this bill, they wrote that they're not going to raise that 400 billion by raising our income taxes. They wrote they're going to raise that money by taxing the companies that use coal, fossil fuels, and natural gas to death. Now, let me ask you, when these companies that are supplying you power and get all their power from coal, natural gas, and fossil fuels start getting taxed to death more than they have been this year and for the next 10 years, do you think they're going to eat all that cost, or do you think they're going to pass it down to you? Dude, they're going to pass it down to us. Exactly. That's why you saw a 15% increase this year. Unisource has only ever done a 4% increase. It was 15% this year. We have 9 more years of these increases lined up because of this bill.
Yeah.
They're not going to eat that cost. You're going to eat that cost. Everyone who doesn't go solar is going to eat that cost. And the people who do go solar are going to get paid by the bill. So now homeowners are basically faced with the decision from the government to either pay for this bill or get paid from this bill. And that's
Mhm.
basically why I'm here today. Not because your bill is going from 200 to 400 in 15 years. No, Mr. Customer. You know California one state over? They're like, yeah. Do you know anyone there? Yes. Okay. When's the last time you talked to them? A couple weeks ago. I bet they mentioned their electric bill, didn't they? They actually did. Yeah, that's funny you bring that up. The reason they mentioned that, Mr. Customer, California has been doing to their state for the last 15 years when now it's happening to the whole country. Do you know how high electric bills are in California, Mr. Customer? No, he just mentioned it was like a few $100, but I just figured he was using way more power than me. Well, here, let me show you. And then I pull out an electric bill from my buddy who went solar with me from before he went solar. It's a January bill from 2022
Mm.
and or from 2023, and it's $800 for like 1,500 kilowatt hours. And I showed them that bill, and I'm like, "You guys use 1,500 kilowatt hours, and you only paid $160. This is a direct example of where your electric bill is going, and it's not going to take 15 years. We just saw it one state over. And now the customers' eyes are all big. They're like, holy shit. They're all scared. Like, they don't even care what the price is. They're ready to sign up for solar, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like showing them the bill and dropping the phone all hard on the counter, make like some crazy effect. But I get into it because it's real. Like what we're saying, this is crazy stuff. And I love what Mike O'Donnell says. He goes, if this was bull shit, I'll say it. And I won't say it for podcast reasons. He goes, it would be the greatest bull of all time because it's not. Like this is real. What's going down, and it's so true. It's like people who don't use the truths and make up some crazy story for why to go solar. It's like, dude, you don't have to do that. We have this real prevalent inflation that runs old ladies out of their homes in California because they can't afford not their mortgage, their house is paid off. They can't afford an electric bill. So now they have to move into a one-bedroom studio. Like this is real, tangible stuff that's going down. And again,
Yeah.
I harp on this heavy, and I make sure that I feel their fear because
Yeah.
now, right after that, I'm going to come in with the solution.
Yeah. Well, it's so big. I love two things that I'm like loving from that is number one, you just got like the passion. Like if I were the customer, you're getting this into it. You're, like getting so passionate about it. Like you can't help but believe and, feel the same pain. So, yeah, I think a lot of people, myself included, we just spit out a couple facts and that's about it for building the pain. But notice the difference. Will is like almost screaming this stuff at you and like talking about old ladies losing their house. It's like I think you're gonna believe the pain if you're getting into it that hard. But then the second thing, I loved how you're like asking them questions. You're making them tell you what the pain is because like I don't know, a lot of us that have been in sales for a while, people believe like 50% of what you say, 75% what other people say, and then but if they say it themselves, then they have to believe it, right? So you're not only saying it yourself, but you're getting them to say it, and if they say it, it has to be true, right? So
That's
two
exactly
things for anyone listening, it's like number one, think about how much passion are you bringing, how much heat are you bringing, like Will, and then are you asking good questions that are making the customers, the prospects, actually answer themselves and realize these things, not just you telling them it. So that's absolute
right.
fire, man. Love it.
Spot on, Taylor. I'm glad you said that because if you have all this passion, you're just spewing facts at people, it's going to seem a little intimidating. But if they're involved and they're completing the sentences and answering it, like you just said, now it's their idea. They're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. They almost feel like they brought this up, you know? So
Yeah.
that's so key is to get them going. And I didn't actually used to do that over the last year and a half, 2 years. I've gotten really good at shifting my facts to questions, right? And stories. Salesmen tell, stories sell, right? It's like shift your statements to questions and stories. That's the biggest
Yeah.
shift.
Yeah. So good. So good. So yeah, great stuff right there. And then yeah, for the solution, yeah. So what yeah, what's it like after that? Going into the solution, getting into numbers. How do you transition from pain to solution here?
Right. So after that, I already feel like when I'm in the house, I'm like, all right, I got this sale. When I could see the look on their face. I'm like, I haven't even said the numbers yet. I know I got the sale, right? Because you just built that state of intention and that pain so much. And then what I do is I immediately go into the cost, right? And again, don't use the word cost with your customer. I'm using it for the sake of training for the podcast. But you want to show them the system and what it's going to cost them. And what I do is I let them know, like, cool, awesome. Now I'm going to show you your system and how it's going to compare to your current situation. So first thing I like to do is show them the system, get them excited on where the panels are, give them a brief rundown on the equipment, and just get them stoked, right? Ask them some soft closing questions. Hey, are you excited about where your panels are going to go? Do you like where your panels are going to go? Yeah, they're going to look great. Get them already thinking about having those panels up there. I go, sweet. Now I'm going to show you how it'll compare to your current situation. And how I do the cost, I'm very precise about how I do the cost, right? As you saw at the event, what I do is first thing I mention, I take the highest monthly payment, as if they're not getting any tax credit, and I let them know. So, Mr. Customer, your monthly payment on the system is going to be $300 a month, right? That's your monthly payment on the system. Now, the total value of the system is 80,631, right? These aren't real numbers. I'm just throwing out random numbers. So that
Yeah.
would be the biggest loan amount without any tax credit, the one they're going to see in the loan docs, right? So now you've
Yeah.
gotten the two highest numbers out of the table. Next thing I do is I let them know you're going to be getting a tax credit of $20,800. Notice how when I say the loan amount, I'm saying 8631. Anyone knows that's 80,631. But when I'm saying the tax credit, which is a bonus, I'm actually saying the $20,800. Sounds a little bit more intense, but it's a good thing for them. So they're like, oh, nice. And then you let them know that brings your net system cost down to 6,200, right? And here's the really amazing thing, Mr. Customer. You know how I told you you're going to get that whole tax credit in, and I'm sorry, Taylor, I skipped over. Before I go into the inflation, I do a short little discovery on the tax credit to make sure that they're getting a tax credit to see if I'm doing a lease or an ownership. So at this
Okay.
point, I would have already known if I'm doing lease or ownership. And I basically let them know, like, hey, so we already established you're going to be getting this $20,800 tax credit before next year, or before, before March of next year, or whenever that timeline is, depending when you're in the house. And I let them know that if you take that $20,800 and you apply it to the system, your monthly payment on the system is only going to be $190 a month. And the nice thing, Mr. Customer, is it actually starts at $190 a month, and it stays $190 a month for 16 months because it takes you time to get that tax credit. And then during that 60 months, you claim your tax credit, you get it, you put it towards the system. As long as you put that tax credit to the system before the 16 or 18 months, I know it's different with different loans, but again, you get the idea. So as long as
Okay.
you take the tax credit and you put it towards the system before that 16 months, you'll only be paying 190 for the entire life of the system. Now, if you're not planning on taking that tax credit and putting it towards the system, no worries. You can pocket all that money, do something fun with it, and you'll still only be at the $300 a month.
Mm.
And now they're like, oh yeah, because instead of going from 190 to, oh, by the way, if you don't do this, it's gonna be 300. Now they're like, oh, what the heck, man? I was all excited about 190, but you start at 300 and you work
Yeah.
your way down to 190. They know everything. They know the highest loan amount. They know the all the options, and they're stoked because you left them with the best ones and you explained exactly how to get there. There's too much misinformation in the solar industry with tax credits and promising people fixed bills when they're not going to get a tax credit. But if you explain it like this, they're going to know that, one, they need the whole tax credit by that 16 month to not jump up. And two, if they're not going to get the whole tax credit in that time, they know what to expect for that time, right? And
Yeah.
expectations are everything. This will help you avoid cancels. This will help you avoid angry customers, bad reviews. And it'll also, the best thing, it's going to boost referrals because you're going to be the guy who was honest with them and explained things properly.
Yeah, so true. Yep, and I know I lost a lot of deals early on when I started closing, just like emphasizing too much what the like monthly amount was after the tax credit. And then, yeah, like you said, people would get confused. I would bring up the higher number. They would get disappointed. They're like, oh, I thought it was this. And now you're telling me it's this. I have to apply the tax credit. So, yeah, I like that a lot. Just being upfront with them, showing, hey, this is the worst case scenario. And then this is what most people do, and making sure you explain really well. Because that's part of why we have this whole, in California, you probably know, Will, we got this whole consumer protection guide. It's getting more regulated, all these things. And it's because you got people that don't understand this, just promising customers different things. They don't get the tax credit. So very important. And yeah, especially in markets where maybe you got lower income, maybe you got social security, fixed income people. You got to be careful about what that expectation is. And it's not fun dealing with these customers a year later and hearing them complain about they're not getting their tax credit because you explained it wrong. So take it from
Exactly.
guys like us. Yeah.
I've heard so many stories from people who got solar and were told they were going to get tax credit and never get it. And I was lucky enough from the beginning of the industry. I wasn't trained by guys who knew how to close very well, but I was trained by people who were selling ethically. So they knew how to explain
Good.
tax credits. They knew how to switch it to leases. They knew how to figure out someone's liability. So I was lucky to at least have people that knew how to sell honestly. They just didn't have skill. right? So I had to learn the skill part on my own, which is fine because there's guys like Michael Donald Taylor, all that out there. But the ethics is something that when you're taught incorrectly, it's hard to learn the other way. And I've seen that from reps
Sure.
coming into my company. You see some people who are taught so wrong, and you're like, these are the reason why our industry is going down, right? And it's like
Yeah.
people are stuck in their ways because they had some guy train them who doesn't know what he's doing and lies to people about tax credits. So the better guys like you, me, and there's a guy from SunSource Solutions, Val. He's now running this whole committee of basically trying to clean up the industry and having us police it, us regulate it, so that the big guys don't come in and make it impossible to sell solar.
Yeah.
Because if we can police it and if we can get people selling ethically as a community, they won't need to come in and change this whole operation for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. So true. So true. So yeah, definitely remember that. But yeah, so let's jump in. Before we run out of time, I want to get into your closing, and then just like how you get people over the hump if they are hesitant, some of your lines, because I thought that was so good and stuff I'm already implementing. So yeah, you gone through the numbers, showed them savings, all that. I assume you do like the whole T chart, kind of like Taylor does, right? Show them utility on
Every
one
closing,
side.
I have those papers and I'm writing down their current situation versus the solar situation. So at the end, it's just a choice, A or B. It's like
Yeah.
an old school
Okay.
Benjamin Franklin close almost, right?
Yeah.
Tom
Yeah.
Hopkins style, but it's more of an illusion way, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have all that broken down. I do the cost. I do roof, move, service savings. You all know how to talk about roofs, move, service savings. I won't get into that. That's easy. And then you just
Yeah.
go for the close, right? So hey, seems like this is making a lot of sense, right? Oh yeah, it's making a ton of sense. Seems like you probably like this option more than your current option, right? Oh, for sure. Well, let me ask you this. Is there anything at all about your current option that you like more than what I showed you today? Zip it, silent. Do not say a word. Every time you go for a close, I don't care if it's 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minutes, 10 minutes, you go silent. And I've had it to the point where people will go, well, let me ask you. And they try to defer and go to a question. You answer the question. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So is that all clear? Does that answer your question? Yeah, totally. So yeah, let me just ask you, is there anything at all you like more about your current situation than what I showed you today? Zip it. Keep asking until you get them to say yes or no, right? As soon as they go, no, you got the close. That's a deal. If you don't get that close, you're doing something wrong because they just told you there's no reason they wouldn't do it. Now you just walk your way to the finish line. Awesome. Great. That's what I expected because this is a pretty awesome system. So what I'm going to do, it's my job since the solar's a yes to get this going as an active job. But basically what we do to get that done is I'm going to do a basic pre-qual, make sure you're not wanted by the FBI. And then we'll go ahead and get a couple of agreements okayed so that you have copies to review the literature and make sure everything I told you is exactly what it is. There is no more, there is no less. And that'll also let us get this going as an active job. Does that sound fair? Now, it's either going to go two ways. You're either going to be like, yeah, that sounds fair, which that's the best moment ever. You just got an easy close, your process worked. But a lot of the times, they're going to hit you with the, yeah, this is awesome. We're probably going to do this. You're great. Everything seems great. We just weren't, we need to think about it, right? We just need some time. And I'm going to go, oh, of course. Yeah, I actually make that a requirement is to do your due diligence to make sure everything I told you is spot on, right? Make sure everything I told you is exactly what it is. Make sure the tax credit info is correct. You're going to actually have time to do all that. The one thing is, as I told you guys, I'm in 5 to 6 of these every day, so I can't come back here, right? So here's what I'm going to do for you. The state of Arizona gives you guys 3 days to make sure you made a good decision, right? It's in the agreement that you guys will have 3 days from today to make sure you made a good decision. Personally, if I was making a decision like this, which I already have, I don't think 3 days is long enough. So what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to go ahead and change the 3 days to 10 days for you guys to make sure that you love the decision that you made. So that for the next 10 days, you guys talk to your CPA, call me with any questions, make sure everything I said is exactly what it is. There is no more, there is no less. And after that, we'll look at getting the install schedule. Does that sound fair? Now, most
Yeah.
of my closes are that's most people just don't want the pressure, right? They don't want the pressure of I need to make a decision right now. But if you actually close them and overcame all their objections, they're going to know over the next 3 to 10 days that they're ready and comfortable to move forward. Nobody needs 20 days, 30 days up until install to make that decision. If you're telling people they can cancel into install, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You need to make sure you're getting the sale, the hard close, and that there's a 3-day or 10-day absolute max to end that agreement. Because if not, you're just going to be feeling the pain of cancels before install and all sorts of stresses that I dealt with my first year in solar. So it's
Yeah.
crucial that you get the hard commitment, but you take the pressure off. And I'm going to give everyone a little nugget. The ones that you change from 3 days to 10 days are the stickiest deals, because when you tell someone they have 3 days, right? Say you have a laydown and they're like, hey, by the way, like just out of curiosity, we're doing this for sure. But like, how long do we have to get out of this just in case something went crazy? And you're like, oh, 3 days to make sure everything's good. Well, now that person's like, oh, damn, I only have 3 days. They're researching that night. They're making sure everything's, they're like calling other companies. They're stressed because they only have 3 days. But if you change it to 10 days, the pressure's off. They go 3, 4, 5 days. Now they're driving around. They're looking at the other systems in town. They're excited to go solar. They look at your reviews. They see good reviews after like 7 days. Like, oh yeah, this is great. Everything checks out. Now they're just ready to go solar. The ones that I changed from 3 days to 10 days, because I don't change them all. Sometimes I just get the person that's ready to sign up there. I never get cancels on the 10 days ones. I've noticed. I feel like I should just change all of them to 10 days. It's
Yeah.
like this relieving thing, you know? But then like at the
Yeah.
same time, you're like, oh, this person's late down. I don't need to change to 10 days. I'm not gonna. And then like the next day that lay down cancels, right? And you're like, oh, so anyway,
Yeah.
I like changing to 10 days. That's my first objection overcoming. That's the first one I go with because it doesn't cost you any money.
Yeah. No, that's good. And yeah, I mean, it sounds so like such a no-brainer. Like you're giving them, the time they need. Like yeah, they got to be unreasonable especially if you've sold them up to that point. If they say no to that, then you probably know that they're not sold on some things, right? So
Exactly. That's
yeah,
exactly right. Exactly
yeah,
right. So
it's,
I have two more. If we got time for it, I want to leave the people with. These are gonna be fire.
yeah. No, this is good. This is good. Yeah, no,
As
keep it
Taylor
going.
said, this one's murder, right? Some J.
Yeah,
Douglas Edwards. So,
yeah,
so, so basically, if they're still not ready, right? I like to go for one more shot at getting the close to see if it's like they're looking to get something extra, and I'll show you guys how to do that one. But if this one still doesn't work, then there's a deeper objection, and I'm gonna show you how to find that. So basically, the way I would handle it is if I just give them the 10 days and they're like, Will, that's awesome, man. Like we don't make decisions day of. It's a rule. Like we talked about it before you got here. We had a meeting where we just can't make a decision. I go, listen, totally get it. Like, no worries at all. I don't want you guys to be pressured. I want you to be forced. None of that at all. Right. I'm giving you the 10 days. If that's not long enough, at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we serve you properly. And we actually have a team to where if you're not ready to get this going today, they'll go ahead and make sure for the next month, 2 months, 3 months, they help you get to that finish line. These guys are awesome, right? We call them the marketing department. They'll make sure you never forget you're interested in solar. These guys, if you think my follow-up's good, these guys are great, right? But the reason I bring them up is because if we unfortunately have to hand it off to them, these guys don't work for free, right? They cost money. So here's what I would propose. I'm here today. We know you're 99% of the way there. We know there's not a single reason you like your current option more. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the 10 days to make sure everything's good on your side. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep the marketing department out of this whole thing. And we're going to move that money from their pocket into your pocket. And I'm going to pay for the first 3 months of your guys' solar payments. Does that sound fair? Zip it.
mm,
That one gets most people because if you've actually closed them, there's two things that are going to get them. The time objection, because people feel stressed. It doesn't matter if they know they want something. There's a pressure, and time is time. So that the 3 days to 10 days alleviates that. And the other one is greed, right? People want a little bit more. And when you
yeah,
give them just a little bit more, but you get a commitment from them, we have to get this going today. This is getting sold today. If they're sold on the idea, they're going to move forward right there. Done. So
yeah,
anyone who's actually sold will move forward right there. Now, if they don't, there's a deeper objection. There is. There's no way around it. Nobody is just that firm on their stance after they agreed to move forward in the beginning. So what you do is you isolate the objection, right? And the way I like to ask is, hey, Mr. Customer, so, I totally get it. The 3 months, the 10 days, it's obviously, not going to help us get this going today. No worries at all, right? We have the marketing department. They're great. But let me just ask you, hypothetically, if the install was set for tomorrow and this was all locked and loaded, we were in, and you have the panels on your roof tomorrow, what would your biggest concern be? Right? And they're going to say, I would want to make sure I'm getting the tax credit. I got to talk to my CPA. Oh, yeah, no, totally. I actually make that a requirement. Like, you should talk to your CPA. I'm not a CPA, so I want to make sure you talk to him and make sure that all the tax credit's good. That actually is why I'm changing it from the 3 days to 10 days, so you have plenty of time to do that, right? And then right there, you can either handle that objection. But what I like to do is I like to figure out if that's the only objection. So now you've asked the question, set them up to get the objection, but I like to take it a step further. And I like to let them know, let me just ask you this. Hypothetically, if I had a magic wand and I waved it and your CPA was sitting right here and he said, hey, you should do this. This is an amazing deal. You should move forward right now. Would you move forward right now? Now he's only going to say one of two things. Yeah, I would. Or, well, yeah, but I'd also want to make sure I got the best price on the system. Well, now you know that there's two objections you have to overcome: CPA, price, close, right? So let's just say he had said, yeah, I would move forward right now. Like, let's do it. Then how I would handle that is I would tell a story to overcome that objection. And what I'm about to do, you can take this and use it for any objection. Price objection, really any objection. You just have to tell the right story. You have to use a credible figure and tell a story. So what I would do is I'd be like,
Yeah.
yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. If he was here, you'd move forward, right? You'd be like, yeah, totally. Awesome. So you're going to have plenty of time to talk to him to make sure that he says that this is the best decision for you. But I just want to tell you about my brother because it reminds me so much of what you're saying, John, right? My brother, his name's Andrew, and he's an HVAC journeyman. He's been doing construction HVAC his whole life. He's a very smart guy, very handy guy. And, when I showed him his solar system, he was very, very excited on it. But, he actually felt the same way as you. He felt that he wanted to make sure he was going to get the full tax credit by the 16th month so his monthly payment didn't jump up. Now, he was my brother, and at that time, we were nowhere near the 15%. So I told him, hey, Andrew, take all the time you need, talk to your CPA. I'll make sure we keep everything good for you. No problem at all. Let me know when you confirm that. Now, Andrew's a really busy guy. He got carried away with work. It ended up taking about 2 months. And then he gets back to me. He's like, hey, Will, I talked to my CPA. Good news. I'm actually going to get the entire tax credit in that first year. So we're good to go. Let's move forward. I was so excited for him. I said, great, Andrew, let's get this set up. I went to open up his project. Unfortunately for him, John, what we found was that the interest rates had gone up 2%. His monthly payment on the same system was $86 more a month. Now, he
Yeah.
obviously still went forward because it still made sense with the fixed cost against inflation, but he was so bummed he's spending an extra $80 a month, thousands of dollars over the course of the system just because we hadn't got that going as an active job that day. Now, I'm not going to let that happen to you. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get this going as an active job today. I'm going to make sure you have the 10 days to confirm everything with your CPA. And if your CPA says anything against what I said, if he says anything to be untrue, this entire thing's voided. But after he confirms that everything I said is exactly as it is, we'll make sure we get you installed in a timely manner. Does that sound fair?
Let's
Close
do it.
right there.
Yeah.
So that exactly. So that's
Yeah.
how I get past. Say he says, no, I got to talk to my CPA. I'll make him call the CPA right there and just get the answer right there, right after that.
Yeah.
So first tell the story, try to beat it. But if there's still like, no, make them call the brother, make them call the son, make them call the CPA, right? Handle that in-house. If not, you're going to leave, they're going to call, and the conversation's going to go the way you don't want it to go. But if you're there to facilitate, you can control and lead that conversation the right way that it needs to go to properly serve these people.
Yeah. That's so good. And yeah, it's like you're hitting them with three different things there. And yeah, as you're going through this in your presentation at Knockstar, I'm like, man, it just feels like it doesn't feel like you're pressuring them. It just feels like super logical things. You're walking them through it. And between those three, like, I feel like you're just hitting them with uppercut, jab, the knockout punch. It's like, yeah, you probably, once you go through all those, it seems like that person's got to be crazy to not do it because you're hitting them with a better deal. You're hitting them with more time to think about it. And yeah, you're isolating the objections. Yeah, I just love that whole process and seems super logical. So definitely going to implement that. But last thing I wanted to ask you before we start wrapping up, Will, if you do have a shopper, because I know occasionally you'll get those people, oh, well, we love this, but yeah, we want to compare the prices. That one can be tougher for some people to handle. So do you have what's your process to go through if that is their objection once you isolate everything?
Totally. So I love to hit them with this, right? Another story, right? I like to ask them. So I totally understand that. And you guys should definitely be getting the best value. And I think we can both agree that you don't want the cheapest price. you want the best price. And I think we can both agree that the best price isn't the lowest, but it's the best quality at the lowest price. Can we both agree on that? We'll be like,
Yeah.
yeah, we can agree on that. And I'll be like, okay, exactly. Now, I do want to tell you guys, about my uncle. He's a lawyer, and I actually helped him get a system as well. And even though he was my uncle, being a lawyer, he knew that he had to go out, shop with 6, 7 different companies, make sure he was not getting the lowest price, but the best price, because that's what people truly want, is the best price, not the lowest price. Now, what he found over the weeks of his research was that our price wasn't one of these guys, which is way up here, right? You got your crazy BMW overpriced, hard to fix, trying to get all your money price. We weren't up here, but he also found that we weren't down here at those cars that break down every single day, lowest price, trying to get you on the used sales lot. He found that we were somewhere right in the middle, but actually closer to that bottom section. And what was insane was that he found that we were not only at that price range, but there was not a single contractor or company that compared to us in reviews, quality, or service. And after he did all his research, he found that at that best price that we offer, you could not get a single competitor that offers a single warranty, coverage, systems, processes, or communication that you're going to get with us. And that's why he decided to do business with not just me, but my contractor. And that's why I have the system on my house, my mom's house, my sister's house, my uncle's house, and everybody I know with a home.
Yeah. That's good.
So
That's
again,
fair.
that's how I would overcome that. And I learned that from Mike O'Donnell. It's this, right?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
taught me that. You do the
That's so good.
high, the low, the middle, and we're somewhere right closer to here. And then you just harp on that service, right? And
Yeah.
then, and it's all about conviction. If I just said what I said to you, but I was like, hey man, like, look, we're not gonna be here. We're not gonna be here. We're gonna be somewhere right here, and we're gonna give you great service. Doesn't mean anything. But if you have energy and conviction, and you're moving your hand and you're guiding them and you're showing them that you actually believe in this, it really doesn't even matter what you're saying. It
Yeah.
matters how you're saying it. And you work past that, and then you just get to the close, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. I know. I have. Sometimes you're saying these lines. I'm like, is this Michael O'Donnell talking or is this Will?
Dude, I was at the
That's so
Suns
good.
game with him last night, and we were chopping it up. I'm like, Mike, I want to be a certified MOD trainer.
Yeah.
I know you're better than anyone, dude. And we were just going back and forth, and Val was laughing because he's like, bro, you literally sound exactly like him. But again, man, it's like I'm not some genius, some sales wizard who came up with all these crafts. I just got around the right people. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't take credit for any of this. I just copy what worked for them, made it my own, and it's worked for me so well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can tell you got these lines down. And again, if you want to master this, hopefully the people listening to the podcast will go through and listen to some of these lines you're using. Listen to, Mike O'Donnell, and of course, keep listening to the Solarpreneur podcast here, because that's what it's all about, is to master it. You got to digest these lines, and you got to internalize them, and you got to be able to say it convincingly, right? And say it with passion. And sometimes
That's
that's what I
right.
struggle with, because I'm like naturally kind of introvert. I don't like I struggle to sometimes get like hyped out of my mind. But yeah, I think you have to make it your style. I know there's guys that they're not necessarily getting super stoked, super excited, but you got to tell the stories, and you got to make the customers feel that you truly believe it. And if you have a house, hopefully you have the product in your house. Hopefully you have stories like that where you've helped family members, other maybe engineers or CPAs that you personally helped, that made the decision that it was the best products. And those stories are absolute money when you're trying to get these people over the edge like that. So, Will, it's been
100%.
awesome. Yeah, man. But
I
yeah,
got
anything else
one.
you want to say
I
on
got
that?
one
Yeah,
more
go ahead.
nugget I wanted
Go
to
ahead. Go ahead.
with if you're cool. This is going to help you guys avoid cancels from permit poachers and other
Oh yeah,
people
this
who
is
may
good.
potentially try to burn your deals. I use this in every home, and my install rate over the last 3 months since I've implemented this is over 90%. So again, implement this and watch your install rate climb. Okay, so here's what you're gonna do.
So
You're
good.
gonna get the
So good.
sale. You're gonna wrap up everything, and then the second that you're about to finish up and say your goodbyes, you're gonna say, "Hey, by the way, Mr. Customer, I want to mention that in solar, just like in every industry, unfortunately, we got some scam artists. We call them fly-by-night solar gypsies, and what they'll do is they'll go online." And they'll look and see that we have an open construction permit on your house because that's public information. and they'll call you, or sometimes they'll even show up at your house and knock on your door. They'll be dressed like either guys from our company or from another company, and they'll try to say they need some info or do an audit or just look at the numbers or try to trick you into signing something that now you're in some whole deal you never wanted to be in. Now, I know you guys are really smart. This is not going to happen to you. You wouldn't fall for that, but I have to give you this warning because I have had people get approached from these solar gypsies before. So if they call you, if they show up at your door, you just hang up, you slam the door, you call me immediately. Let me know what they look like and what they're wearing, and I'll make sure that they get reported. Does that sound good? And they're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, thank you for the warning." Now, you guys, next time a knocker knocks on the door to sell them solar, they open the door, they're like, "Hey, we're here about solar." They're like, "Gypsies, slam the door, done." No burn deals right there. So, yeah, just
That's
just a
good.
little nugget. It's worked really well for me. All my guys. I learned it from Andy Elliott. Shout out to Andy Elliott. That's a great one.
Nice.
I'm always looking for ways to get down the burn deals from the permit poachers, because those people are no fun, right? Offering your people a
Yeah.
2.1 red line on a system.
Yeah. No, I love that. So good. Because, yeah, even if they come in way lower pricing, whatever, it's like you already prepped them. Doesn't matter what they say. They already know, okay, this
Hanging
guy's a
out.
gypsy.
Yep, exactly. Gypsy slam done.
Yeah.
So,
That's
and
so
then I'll
good.
also my customers. Some of those gypsies came around. We slammed the door. Some of those gypsies called us. We hung up on them. We blocked the numbers, and I'm like, here we go.
That's so good. That's awesome. Well, Will, it's been awesome having you on the show, man. And I know we could go for hours on this. So we'll have to have you on for a follow up, hopefully in the future. But yeah, before I forget, if people want to reach out, potentially get connected with you out there in Arizona or learn more from you, what's the best way to connect with you? And drop your
Yeah,
socials,
best
whatever
way
you know,
is to
drop.
just 100%. Thank you, Taylor. I appreciate you. And the best way to connect with me would be to DM me on Instagram at the Will Durlene. So that's TheWillDurlene. So at the Will Durlene. DM me if you have any questions about closing. I'm an open book. I'll hop on a call, give you any advice. I love sharing knowledge. Mike O'Donnell and Sam Taggart, all those guys, they really instilled in me that the best way you can serve the world is by giving everything you have. So anything anyone has questions on, if anyone wants to reach out, if anyone wants to go out in the field, shadow, whatever it is, I'm an open book. I'm down to train anyone, even if they're not in our own organization. So I'll leave you guys with that.
Love it, love it. Appreciate that, and yeah, it's awesome to see how far the industry's come. That guys are willing to share like this, and we really appreciate it. Hearing secrets that help us close all more deals. So yeah, just to wrap up, is there any parting words of wisdom, maybe for a rep that's struggling or someone that's thinking of maybe quitting solar, going to a different industry? Anything you would share with that rep, just to wrap things up here, Will?
I'll leave you guys with this. The grass is greener where you water it, right? It's never going to be an easier situation just because you switch industries, just because you switch companies, just because you try to do some drastic change. It starts with you. And no matter where you're at, if you put the work in, if you put the consistency in, if you put the self growth in, and you focus on who the person that you need and who the person that you've always wanted to be is, become that person and deliver it to the world on an everyday basis, all your wildest hopes, dreams, desires, ambitions will all come true. And that's an absolute fact. So again, the grass is greener where you water it. Wherever you're at today, full send it on that. If you're not with people who have the same morals, ethics, or vision as you, get away from them and get around people who do, and just full send it. Stop thinking that switching some company, switching some industry is going to help you be the secret answer, because it really starts with yourself and what you're willing to do that the other person won't.
Yeah, so good, so good. So, guys, I hope you took notes. Go listen to this podcast, digest these lines, digest the closing process, and just like Will was saying, you are the average of the people you hang out with. You will become just like the people you are hanging out with. So, you've been hanging out with WD-40 and Taylor A. Solarpreneur today. So let's keep it going. Thanks again for coming on the show, Will, and we'll keep crushing deals. Appreciate it.
Absolutely excited to be back next time. Thanks, Taylor.
All right, man. All right, see ya.